You're listening to the Small Business Talk podcast with Cathy Smith. Episode 22.
Small Business Talk is a podcast for business owners and entrepreneurs who want a better way to run their businesses without spending years doing it the hard way. Small Business Talk is hosted by Cathy Smith, who has run the same marketing agency for more than 17 years and helped hundreds of business owners achieve their marketing goals.
Welcome to the Small Business Talk podcast. Today, I thought I would talk about my journey, the journey of how the Small Business Talk podcast came about and what's happened since. So I'd been talking about doing a podcast for quite some time, never quite got it together. It all sounded way too scary and I wasn't sure what to do. So in December 2018, a friend of mine was going to do a podcasting course and he suggested that I should do it with him, as I'd spoken about doing podcasting before. It was 3 days before I was due to fly overseas on holidays with the family. Oh no, I couldn't possibly do that, and all the other excuses under the sun. He was very persuasive, and in the end I decided, well, why not? The timing worked well. It would be 9:30 at night, 1 day a week, for the 4 weeks we were away. So 9:30 at night worked okay because everybody had their own things happening by then. We'd had our family dinner. Everything was cleaned up and sorted. Why not? So that's what I did. I enrolled and I had a chat with Ray Milladoni, who's on episode 19, and off we went. It was a fantastic podcasting course. It showed us where to put things, how to put things, what we should be looking at for a guest, and all that sort of thing. It was really good. Off I went, got it started, did the work, and it actually happened. So then it was time to apply for an Apple ID. Not being an Apple girl, I didn't actually have one. I know, shock horror. So I applied for it, and I waited. And I waited. And I waited. It was getting close to when I wanted the podcast to launch. Finally, I found a phone number for Apple, and I rang them. And it turned out that I hadn't actually jumped all their hoops. So after 2 more days of hoop jumping, I finally got my Apple ID, and then I was ready to go. And then it took another 72 hours after I had uploaded my first podcast, which was the trailer, for it to be approved. So unfortunately, my podcast didn't come out on time. Well, it did on Stitcher Radio, but not on Apple. So one thing to remember is allow plenty of time and do these things in advance. My very first podcast was with Pauline Bright, who was kind enough to come to my office so that we could do it in person. I'd done podcasting before as being the guest, but not ever being the interviewer. It was quite interesting. So we got all the gear set up, got it all sorted, off we went. We were having a lovely chat, and after a little while I thought, I better check how the sound's going. And my laptop was completely blank. Nothing. So we stopped, we turned round, we looked at it, worked it out. It had auto-hibernated. So the last about 7 or 8 minutes of our wonderful conversation, we hadn't recorded. I hadn't turned the auto-hibernate off on my laptop. So the recording had been cancelled. So that was another lesson learned. So we soldiered on, redid it, and then I spliced the two together. That's the beauty of editing. You can do that. So the next thing I forgot to do, well, I was interviewing a guest that wasn't in my physical location. So we were doing it via Skype. I forgot to test the microphone and they couldn't hear me. So there we are, happily chatting away. They can't hear me. Took a few minutes to work out what was going on and make sure it was sorted. Not a very professional start to an interview. Another thing I did was one time I forgot to hit record. Once again, we were having a lovely chat on Skype. no recording. When I very first got my Rode mic, I was so excited. Went and tested it, started getting the intros and the outros sorted. Didn't seem to be working all that well. It was a bit muffled. Couldn't quite work it out. I left the packing foam in between the mic and the voice shield. Take the packing foam out. It's a good tip. Another time, I didn't plug the mic in before I turned on Audacity, the program I used to record these podcasts, the ones where it's just me. So it wasn't recording off my new fancy Rode mic. It was recording off the mic off the computer, which was actually quite a long way away. So that wasn't really that good either. And then I didn't turn the phone off. Halfway through, got a call, had to redo that one. Another time, I was really rushed and I didn't prepare quite as well as I should have. Also, the guest didn't send their information in. And finally it arrived 5 minutes before we were due for the interview. So I didn't get a chance to read it or assess what was going on. After the interview, I read it and realised that I had missed such a critical point. So I contacted the guest and fortunately we were able to then do that section I edited in. Just recently, one of my guests, for some reason, I thought that she was in a different time zone to me. She scheduled the meeting, so it came up on my time zone. So when I sent her the reminder, I sent her the reminder of 2 hours later. Fortunately, she realised my mistake, contacted me straight away and said, "Don't you mean this time, not that time? I'm actually in the same time zone as you." So that was really cool. Another time, I loaded up the podcast, had done the MP3, everything was fine, forgot to put it on the playlist. If you don't put it on the playlist, it doesn't get pushed through to Apple and Stitcher and which other programs you're in. So you must put it on the playlist. I was editing, had multiple tracks going, decided to mute one so that I could concentrate on another, and then forgot to unmute it when I published it. So there was a big section missing. Another thing that I've done is edited it and then not gone back to the end where the outro was because the spacing's been different. So there's either been a big gap or you've got the two voices talking over each other, which doesn't look really good. So as you can see, there's lots of mistakes along the way. But that's okay. Give yourself plenty of time, be sorted, and then you'll be fine. That's what makes us human. And in the end, you just need to do it. Nobody died. I learnt. I don't think I've made the same mistake twice, although, as you can see, I've made plenty of different ones. But that's all part of it. So I hope you like this bloopers reel, just to show you that it's not all smooth sailing. But that's okay. You will learn. We all didn't come out being able to walk. We fell over, we skinned our knees, we got back up again, and off we went. So if you're thinking about doing a podcast, go for it. It's lots of fun. You get to meet lots of people that you wouldn't have normally met, and you get better as you go along. So just go for it. Next week's Small Business Talk podcast, we're going to be talking to a psychologist about something that holds your business back. So I hope you'll really enjoy that. I had lots of fun doing the interview. Until next week, bye for now. Don't forget to subscribe to Small Business Talk podcast and head on over to smallbusinesstalk.com.au/downloads for all the show notes and links to this episode. Remember, to be great, you must start. Pick one tip from today's episode, take action and implement it. Let's meet again next week at the same time and place. Until then, take action. And SBT community, enjoy your journey.